raise that in response to Nan's comment at the back, was that DNB joined the NUT on their recent strike action and will continue to do so.
Okay.
Yeah, John, I think those are all really good points. In terms of the fragmentation, the teacher unions bear a responsibility and have to get their act together. It's shameful, the division of the teacher unions in this country. It's not unique in the world. In France and Spain they're divided, but there are plenty of other places. Scotland, there is one teacher union effectively, the EIS, and in America there are two, but they divide their forces. They don't compete against one another. In Australia it's just one union, and that makes the teacher movement much more powerful. The NUT's got a position that it wants a merger. We are advocating a merger of the teacher unions. We realise that would mean giving up our name, it would giving up all sorts of things. That would be painful, but we want to merge. But it takes two to tango, unfortunately. We are working now to try and build united fronts. So we were recently with TUCs, we're working with the TUC to have an overarching campaign against schools for profit. So there's a little bit of work that we can do together, but I think there is much more that the teacher unions have to do together. Val, welcome back to NUT conference after 27 years.
Yeah.
And I thought your points were all really good. And I think you're absolutely right. It would be, I don't want to be any part of a union leadership that is in a room with Tristram Hunt, and that's what the engagement with politicians is. It's not, I mean, we obviously do want to be in a room with Tristram Hunt and put in the points to him, but we want to engage members in the process. And I know that the NUT secretary in Bury met with Tristram because he happened to be up in there, and she sent us a report of that, very robust discussion. Some good points were made, and we're serious in the motion that we're going to pass, that we're currently in the middle of debating about. We're serious that we want a really fundamental lobby of Parliament involving members in a really deep going way, and involving parents in that. And we want to see every candidate and every sitting MP, and we want to involve members in doing that. So we certainly don't want it to be a head office thing. And the 1944 Education Act and the NHS, I guess there's a complication that the progressive left didn't like bits of the 1944 Education Act. We didn't like the tripartite system, grammar schools, secondary moderns, and technical schools, whatever they were called. I can't remember what they were called. I wasn't around at the time. So, but it was still massively progressive. It extended secondary education to all working class kids for the first time. And it's the 70th anniversary on the 3rd of August, and Labour should be trumpeting it.
You should as well.
We intend to trumpet it. Yeah, that was so. We do need to do that. And John's point. I mean, the point I want to. I'm scared, but we are contemplating Labour. You know, we're contemplating if the Tories are still there, and the privatisation is still open, and it would be an enormous challenge to state education, I think, to our National Health Service if that happens. So we are going to work before the election,
that's
but
why
we're also
Obama's advisor across the hill.
yeah. So
Yes, we can.
But we yes we can. And I also, Val, I agree with you. The point you made about Labour Party teachers should be doing more to influence Labour Party policy.
Yeah, on John's point about the fragmentation of trade unions, I can just give you an example of, if you like, in terms of influencing the impact it has on people like me that are standing for election. In the last campaign, two different bodies came to me about the same policy but with different policy positions, and both said, and if you don't do what we want, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. Now that leaves me no place to go, absolutely no place to go. So I can't agree with both of them. You know, so you have to take a position. And you know, so one thing I would say is, I find it a pretty pointless political strategy to say we're going to get lots of people to write to you and say we're not going to vote for you unless you do X. I think the challenge is to try and influence that policy at the higher level to get people on side. However, we do that through negotiation and talking. I mean, I would like to see some of the teaching unions affiliate to the Labour Party. I think that's the way you're going to have most influence.
What's your point?
Is if, you know, I think one of the reasons health has a higher profile is because all of the unions that are involved with the NHS are affiliated to the Labour Party. And that gives them so much more influence. They're part of the inside. And so that would be one issue. The other thing is, Val, I can't see you. your point about involving teachers in policy, I think has got to be, you know, the way that we go. I mean, what's interesting about academies and free schools is that Simeon and I were in a discussion recently where the person that was speaking about them wanted to come very much from what he believed was a parent's perspective. But actually, most parents I meet aren't so bothered about the structure or the ownership. They're bothered about having a good local school, and I would like to shift the debate to having good local schools for local children. My ideology, my personal ideology, is no to free schools and academies, but I think we need to recognise that what parents are about is they want their kids to be able to get to a good school and get there easily. They want them to be looked after and not bullied and come out with qualifications and training and ready to start work. And I think we have got to address that. On the whole, I'm not finding parents are saying particularly that they like academies or free schools. The concern is, can they get their kids into a good local school? And I think it's for us to go out and sell the policy that the reason that I would like to see schools established on a more equitable basis is because that's the way the money's shared around. I want teachers to be able to go for any job in any school, not be directed or worried about losing pay if they then go to a state school rather than a free school. So there's other reasons I think that the drivers that I would have for having a more equitable system apart from my own ideology. And on John's point, I just wanted to pick up on the apathy of young voters, because that's an interesting one, and it's one we're trying to address in Brighton. We got young people to put together a survey about all of the issues, so that when they say on the doorstep, as they quite often do, well, I don't really know about politics, I don't really know what everybody stands for, which, you know, we could say that of a lot of people actually, other than young people. We got to put together a list of issues which they're voting on, so we're hoping to collect 1,000 surveys in of young people, and it includes things like EMA, tuition fees and all of that, and we're going to see what comes out on top. And what me and the other two candidates have said in Brighton is we'll pick the top 5 issues, and they'll be the issues we campaign on. Personally, I'm hoping that EMA is going to be one of those top 5, because I met a lot of kids who came from Walscombe, one of the poorer areas in Brighton, who feel that having lost that education maintenance allowance, it now does affect their ability to go to school. We've got a lot of kids who did appreciate that, and I've got one who went on to university, a Labour Party activist, who said that if it hadn't been for EMA, he wouldn't have got the qualifications that he got. So that one's particularly close to my heart. And just on the kind of other parties, you know, this idea that you use your vote in a general election as a protest vote is just so alien to me. I almost don't know where to start. You know, we're going to have a choice between a Labour or a Tory government. I desperately don't want it to be a coalition with anybody. You know, the thought of a Tory UKIP coalition is terrifying. You know, I think I'd be leaving the country if that happened. But you know, I would like to see. You know, I would like people to really think quite seriously about how they use that general election vote. We want a Labour government. I want a Labour government. We don't want a Tory government. If we don't want a Tory government, there is no point in voting for UKIP, TASC or the Greens. And I really, really hope that if we have got a socialist candidate like me standing in Brighton, Kent Town, that other people are not going to come and divide that vote, because this seat could be won or lost on a couple of hundred votes. So please, please urge people to think really seriously about how they use that when it comes to election day in 2015.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite enough useless right-wing Labour candidates, people could say. Sian, is there anything you would like to say?
I just wanted to say about like students joining. I think it wouldn't be too difficult to get into. It's just people need to talk to them, because like I know quite a lot because I'm involved in all this and stuff. But when I talk to my friends and they don't really know anything, and I have to explain it all to them. And I think if people just explained it to students, then they can realise themselves how that badly affects them. So yeah, just explain it.
Thank you. Paul.
Two quick points, building on what Sian said. I think the situation with political education in this country is so poor historically. I think that's one major reason why I never accept the argument that young people are apathetic. I think people might appear to be apathetic if, in a sense, they don't feel that their voice is heard or they can't see a way of changing things. I think that's what's got to change. I think political education is going to be important and should be part of any changes. I suppose the only other comment I'd make was about the first question. Do I agree with professional unity and there being one union for teachers? Yes, because it's something that makes us weaker. I think nationally we've done a lot in recent years with the campaign to try to build that kind of unity on the ground. And I think locally, and lots of areas have done this, it's been trying to be open so that when you have meetings in schools, you don't kind of just have separate meetings, you invite people from other unions along and try to make it open. We have to accept that there are historical differences between the two unions and the reasons why people join those unions. And I think one of the main differences, and this does relate to us influencing the Labour Party, is I don't think the NUT has ever seen itself just as a traditional trade union that is about paying conditions. We see ourselves as an education organisation that has a lot to contribute about education policy. And I'm not trying to be sectarian. I don't think the NASUWT has historically. They've seen themselves as a narrow range of interests. But I think we can involve more people through wanting to influence what education policy should be, rather than it just being about our paying conditions.
Thanks very much. I can take